6:30, April 8th. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. City Manager Megger, would you go ahead and establish a quorum?
Yes.
Are we live on Zoom? Just want to make sure we're good there.
Should be, yeah.
Great.
There are people in there.
All right. Mayor Sawatsky,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Scafani,
Here.
Councilmember Nape,
Here.
Councilmember Louis Lusso,
Here.
Councilmember Fire is absent.
Great. All right, let's go ahead and stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to approval of the agenda. Does anyone wish to make any modifications to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have public comment on closed session. Wait a minute. We have public comment after the closed session, so we need to swap 9 and with 8 to get that squared away. And I would like to put future agenda items and council correspondence above closed session so that we can conclude our work while the public is still here.
Great. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of amending it?
Oh, let's just public first.
Sorry, amending that portion of it, and then we'll take it to the public. All those in favor of amending?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Would the public like to make any input on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for final approval. All right, one more motion to approve the agenda. Actually, we need to take it up to Zoom. Apologies. Anyone in Zoom want to amend the agenda? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and see if we can get a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to item number 4. The public is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the city council that is relevant to the scope and authority of the city of Blue Lake and not on the agenda. The council may provide up to 15 minutes for public input. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. Thank you. Anybody wish to make public comment? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lynn Glenn, and I'm planning to apply for the Public Safety Commission vacancy. However, I had a family emergency and I'm going to have to be out of town for a couple of weeks, so would not be able to attend the regular meeting of the City Council. So I just wanted to let you know that I will have an application in, and it's pretty complete as to what my qualifications are. So hopefully there won't be any questions, but if there are, I understand, because I think it's really important to pick good people and for the council to feel confident in the people that you pick. So just to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cool. Yes, go ahead, Becky.
I went into City Hall today and had a wonderful experience. I want to share that with everybody. Danny and Tony put together some things for me, and I want to thank them. And this is for my public record request. Everything that I asked for, they got. A couple of things are actually on the agenda tonight, so I will wait until that comes up. But I just wanted to do that and thank them for their help. And thank all of you too.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to comment? Julie, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Angela Christie. I want to give a thank you to the Good Samaritan today that made a public post about a coyote out with my sheep. I immediately had a bunch of people get a hold of me, and I just really appreciate that community involvement. And I wanted to thank Lori Ponte for organizing the last Grange. I think that's great, and I'm really looking forward to Annie Mary Day this year. I think any input the community can do to the Commerce about ideas for creating venues and just events for the public to enjoy. We could start brainstorming and sharing those. I think that'd be really nice to really make this new date, August 3rd, like pretty cool. I want to comment that you guys had a public safety meeting yesterday. I wasn't aware that it was actually happening because there was no agenda posted on either calendars on the website. And thank you, Justin, for recording it. But after the recording was posted, I went back to the online website and it still hadn't been posted. So I want to make a note of that in current. And I got to hear Kent speak earlier today at supervisors on consent agenda. And he had made a comment about with our funds for the sheriff's contract, the difference in it this year, and potentially looking at us getting animal control out here. And I really support that idea too. If it's something we could budget in, it helps us out and it helps out their program to keep it going for the rest of the county. So thank you guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to comment? All right, we'll bring it back to council.
Can I make a comment?
Um, I
I
guess.
just like to clarify, I know a lot of people are having trouble finding agendas on the website at times. And there is a problem um, with the way the website is cycling with our new server. So anytime you think there should be something posted, if you would just refresh your computer or your phone and look again, oftentimes it'll pop up, but it's not always showing the way it should be, within the first 24 hours that it's posted. So I believe everything was posted appropriately.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5. Councilmember Napier has requested information regarding the fiscal year 2024-2025 staffing levels, cost allocations, and wage rates. All staff and contracted city employees. Staff has provided available cost details and will be available to answer questions. City Manager Riger, would you like to go ahead and chime in on that?
We've provided some backup documentation and we're here to answer questions and Danny's here to answer questions as well.
Well, since I requested it, what I was requesting was a short report that can enable council and the public to see the number of staff that we have, their full-time equivalency, the job title, and the step or rate of pay that each is at. And then to also see that by department. So that way we get a sense of, do we have, 10 admin and 1 maintenance guy, which isn't the case. But as we begin our budget process, that's kind of a fundamental and foundational piece to have an idea of our staffing levels. And that kind of informs us of a baseline within our budget. So I'm hoping in the future we can get a little bit closer to that and including the contract employees as well. I do have a couple of questions on that. I'm hoping, Mandy, that you can get those clarified. For the building official, it looks like he works a half a day on Wednesday, every Wednesday. Is that right?
Yes, he does.
Okay, so that's 4 hours.
It depends. Sometimes his days are shorter, some days are longer, depending on how many projects he has or inspections. So it just really is kind of up in the air depending on what we have going on.
Okay, but 9 to 12, that's 3. But I mean, would I just on average, is it fair to say 4 hours more or less, or 6 hours more or less? Or,
Probably closer to 5 or 6.
okay,
I think.
5 hours a week. And then the same with the city planner.
So Gary is here the second and fourth Tuesday or Wednesday of every month from like 9 to noon to meet with the public and to meet with staff. And then he is just here based on projects.
So roughly 6 hours a month baseline plus additional. You're more familiar with these reports. Would you say it's roughly 20 hours a month or 50 hours a month? Or
It just depends on the projects. I mean, depending on what level of review he's doing or reports or where we're at in a project. So it's really fluid. I would say the only consistency is his regular hours.
And then we also have him present at council meetings and planning commission meetings and sometimes other meetings.
So planning commission meetings, Gary runs planning commission meetings. We only have planning commission meetings when we have items. So we won't have a meeting this month because we don't have any items. We didn't have a meeting last month. So it's really just as needed because it's pretty expensive to have the planner come in and then put all the packets together and all of it. It's only as needed.
I think so we can get a better idea of how much this is over the course of a year. If we can look at the number of hours per month for the city planner, and then we can, from there, we can extrapolate an average. And then we could do the same with the city engineer as well and the city attorney.
Do we pay those fees in terms of an invoice, or do we pay them like a wage or salary?
No, they're invoice based.
And so I guess we'd have to examine the invoices to see what
Yeah.
the hours are over a course of time.
For the, oh, sorry, you're right. Oh, are the hours coded like if Gary, if the city engineer is at a planning commission meeting and it's for a specific project, does it get coded to that project?
Now, all the guys are coded so that they can be tracked separately. So every project that we have, if it's grants or it's a special project, all has the project code.
And then when it isn't coded, it's just like a general fund item? And is that under public works or is it under admin or
It's
where
under
put it?
planning and engineering.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions related to that?
All right. Okay. A couple.
I'll just ask them while you're.
Yeah. Okay.
Solid waste, AB 939 fund is 132% over budget. Is there a reason for that?
Not on, it's a small fund, so any overage on that can look really, really large. But we just received, and it depends on when our funds come in, so we just received notice of our next allocation. So, and then we also have transfer in, we have a holding fund for that too, so we transfer in as needed. But it, you really have to look at the amounts. I mean, we can have, we have small projects that maybe the budget's a couple $1,000s, and if we go over 150, it looks a lot bigger than what the actual impact really is.
And that fund is mostly for greenways, those once a year garbage dump deals.
We budget green waste, and then we have recycling in the park facilities. So they're very specific. We have to, through our Cal Recycle grant, we have to have they come in and look at like our paper recycling bins. You're really limited on what you can use according to use for staff. Empty recycling bins and things. You can buy recycling bins and containers, and you can do our green waste. So it's a very limited scope of what those ones can be used for.
Sorry, we're popping all around. I was going to try to get my first page on the wage scale completed. I noticed that on recreation coordinator and recreation specialist from 2019 to this one, it's been a 50% increase in the rate all across the board. And I understand that I think he's on a bed in California $17 an hour. So we have to meet that. It looks like even at the high end, it's a 50% increase. That's pretty significant. What accommodations have you been able to make to basically absorb them?
Well, you have to understand our recreation positions are very limited in their number of hours that they work. So a lot of these are they work summer camp. They might only be working 2 months out of the year. They work limited hours to skate, maybe skate only 2 hours, 3 hours a week. So trying to stay within minimum wage, but also be able to pay enough for some of these kids to want to come out to Blue Lake to work. We offer a little bit more. But when you look at the expenses overall, they're really minimal. They don't receive the benefits or anything. So, those hourly wages, if you're working Friday night skates is all, and you're making, $18.34 an hour, you're getting 3 hours of pay as well.
That's a great point. So it sounds like the recreation coordinator does not get benefits.
Those are part-time positions. So
So
they
don't
go.
get benefits.
Who's your recreation coordinator? Chris? So depending on the number of hours you work, those benefits are prorated, but they don't receive full benefits. So there's no, medical or anything like that.
The benefits are prorated.
Yeah, so
Everything.
number of hours, so it's a prorated sick and vacation time.
And isn't there a minimum number of hours in order to qualify? Is that 30, 32 days? 26. Okay. So the rec coordinator could have benefits, not just, but have prorated benefits. But the recreation specialist would not.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes all benefits. Thank you. But the Parks and Rec director, that's full-time. So there's benefits. Same with the assistant recreation director, that's full-time with benefits. And then the recreation coordinator is full-time with benefits. Okay. That's, I think I was seeing that on here.
Yeah, if you look at the earnings history, where it says the position and the department they're in, and then the employee rate is the very next column. You'll see that in the earning title, they'll say part-time leave hours paid, part-time regular for everybody who's a part-time. Everybody who's full-time will have full-time regular or FT next to their.
Yes, and I understand that. That's where I saw that with the coordinator, because it came out as a full.
I'm looking at October and November, and it shows rec coordinator full-time. It shows it at 1 FTE for both of those months. Again in September.
Yeah, that's be for all of the people who hold the recreation coordinator title. That's not just for one person. That's everybody who holds that title, total equivalent to one full-time employee,
Okay.
according to how MIP calculates it.
Should we in the future designate that as like a shared or an aggregate position so that we're not kind of confused?
I'll do my best. I can't really edit the reports. They come out this way from MIP, and it doesn't let me just like put comments on it, you know. But I can attach maybe a commentary with the report in the future.
Just if we had the title of rec coordinator aggregate, you know, if we had aggregate rec coordinator.
I'm so sorry, I can't change the titles in MIP. They have to be a specific thing, unfortunately.
All right. Well, yeah, something that would accompany and say that there are X number of rec coordinators. You know, we could do some math on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's trying to extrapolate the situation from this has some challenges. Sure.
So whether we look at it as individual positions per department or in aggregate, it looks like we have 4.57 in admin, that'd be FTEs. And then in public works, we have 4. And you can see someone's it was 5. I think Hal was here at that time. We had Hal and Christopher Edgar at the same time. And then at Parks and Rec, it also comes out to 4 FTEs every month. So that puts us our staffing levels at say about 13 every month. If we take into consideration the aggregate positions and then the regular full-time positions.
That sounds about right.
Partial FTE.
Question. It looks like in April, multiple staff members are suddenly listed as part-time who were full-time before. Did something occur in our system or did we make any changes?
If you could point out any particular ones that you're talking about.
Page 4, the admin account specialist from July 2024 to March 2024. 2025 is listed as a 0.1 or 1.0, and then it drops down to 0.0.
Let's try that on.
For April.
Yes.
April, there's just let me bring it back here.
That's right. Look at it.
Title was admin account specialist and assistant first aid person.
Yes,
Probably only changes
that's when we had a title change, and that is when the former city clerk left.
Not picking on anybody, But could we use the public works maintenance worker one as an example to understand this? If you page 2, where it'll have its same title description, it might say part-time without pay, hour pay, greater than 5 or different time. There are a lot of redundancies by the different employee groups. That's kind of the theme. Could you help me interpret that?
So basically, this list is everybody who received paychecks at the rate they received them at for how many hours they received them at. And all I did was take off the names because that wasn't pertinent to the conversation we're having here. And so I just left the job titles, what they're classified as, and then, their pertinent rate details. So there are multiples on this particular report because that represents there are multiple employees that are earning at different rate codes.
And is there another duplication because there was a rate change sometime during this period?
And just to confirm, the Powers Creek Fund and the CDBG Fund are at 0 is because they're not active. Is that correct?
Yes, they're not being charged again.
So, Danny, I'm going to go back to that same sheet if you don't mind. So, if I'm looking at the public weight maintenance worker one, and this is picking on any person, just having, it looks like since there are 4 different rates of pay, that would be 4 different people.
Yep. There's 2 full-time and 2 part-time. And then each person who is a full-time person, and I think one of the part-time people does callbacks and on-calls, so they get recorded separate from, that is separate from their full-time regular hours worth of time.
Now I'm confused. I thought there were a total of 3 maintenance workers.
We did have somebody change classifications also, I think in the last year, presenter became, didn't he bump up or change titles?
So we have 5.
We have 5 totals.
One. Right.
There's a supervising operator, a superintendent, and 3 maintenance workers.
Yes.
And so how many maintenance worker ones versus how many 2s?
I believe we have 3 ones. And then 2 2s. Unless they changed
Oh, we might
in
have
the middle of it.
I changed in the middle. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, there is some rate changing happening here. A couple of people did change job titles as well in the last year. So that is unfortunately kind of a part of this report.
Okay. So overall, it looks like we're on budget essentially for our overall pay in terms of wages and salaries. And I'm assuming that, as it says nothing in here about pensions, benefits, this is strictly wages and salaries, correct? And so at the bottom of the second page of the summary budget comparison, it shows our total budget at $782,024. And just assuming based on what I've seen in other documents, we're probably have something in the neighborhood of $400,000 above that in terms of benefits, pensions, and other expenses.
Yeah, and those are budgeted separately. If you want to get into the nitty gritty of unfunded pension liabilities and things, we can have a great conversation about that. Most people's eyes glaze over because it's basically you're talking about future expenses that the city incurs for having people on payroll.
Right. But that's a separate item. I mean,
Yeah,
I think,
it's a separate
right?
budget item.
I mean,
It's hard
this-
from separate.
right. So I'm trying to just get a general sense of what in excess of this 782
are we going to be taking out this year for pension and benefits?
That would be a separate report, but we would also be, it would be its own budget comparison because we budget for that separately than we do the salary. So it's not coming out of that 782 budget. It's coming out of its own budget. And I don't have that off the top of my head. I'd have to pull a report for you.
Okay. And that would be two separate things. One would be like the health and dental and vision benefits. The other would be the pension benefits.
Yes.
And
Yeah, those each have
Yeah.
their own budget as well.
And if we're paying them, well, if we're paying them this year, I guess, but then there's a whole separate item that is future liabilities, correct?
Yes, and we're about to have our actuarial come in and do our evaluation for that. It's due. We usually get a pass forward year where we get an actuarial every other year, basically. And so this year's the year, and we'll be getting that report from them, giving us the total of what our current unfunded pension liabilities look like. It's called a GASB 75.
And so once we get that, are we then going to pay that in this fiscal year?
It builds into the budget. You'll get a report on it when we get the report on what it looks like. I'm due to provide the details of our financials to the actuarials this week before I leave for my trip.
Okay. And so are we only paying those every other year?
We pay our unfunded liabilities each budget cycle, but we do our actuarial evaluation. We have a roll forward every other year. So, but this is a year that they have to actually come in and do the actual calculations. And then next year they'll roll it forward.
I do have, oh, did you have a question?
With regards to the rounds and the callback pay, why has that been increasing this year?
It's been increasing. One, we had to increase the amount to keep up with wages because it has to be a percentage of wages. So we can't underpay that. And then this year we've had a lot of storms and a lot of issues. So that creates a lot of problems. Like our SCADA system will go down. It has to be, anytime we get a blip with our, with the grid, our SCADAs have to go and be reset. We've had some repairs. We made our booster stations that we were starting to see some failures in some of the pumps that were causing some issues with callback. So anytime, we get someone in the middle on the weekend that, has a water line break, we have to do a call out. If there's, anything that is associated with, they do rounds every day, including the weekends, but then if they get called out for a specific item, then we have to pay for that as well.
It's around just like checking the pumps and
So they go, yeah. So every day they go and they check all the pumps, they check all of our facilities, they check all the levels, they go out to the treatment plant, they check the power plant, and so we make sure that everything is operational and stuff. So we have to pay. So someone's on call and doing rounds every weekend.
I have a Mandy question. So this is also in the summary budget comparison. Park facilities, and then recreation. Because we're used to saying parks and rec. What's the difference in those? What's kind of housed under each of those two?
In facilities and general recreation? Is that what the question is?
One is, it looks like it's code 425 park facilities,
Yeah.
and the other's 445.
Yeah, so general recreation is our skating program, summer camp, activity-based type of charges and expenses. And then 425 facilities is actual like facility maintenance, taking care of the facilities, coming in and the general upkeep of the actual buildings and facilities themselves.
And it looks like those two combined and just in wages were about $250,000. Do you have any idea what cost recovery we have with Parks and Rec as far as the revenue that they generate to help offset that?
Yeah, that's all tracked in the budget. So we budget revenues and expenditures.
Well, yes.
So
I'm asking if you know if that's a break even or.
no, not even close. No, parks never pay for themselves through revenue generation. our goal is to make sure that we pay for all of our activities, pay for themselves, and that we're looking for sectors and opportunities to make additional revenue. But it's pretty impossible to be able to drive enough revenue, to pay for, everything that we have in town. But we try and drive as much revenue as possible to offset the general fund.
Do you know about how much roughly it costs the city every year?
Um, well, our park budget, off the top of my head, you know what your park budget is? Overall budget, so. Yeah. So I don't have to budget that.
Yeah.
I can tell you almost 30 years.
What was it?
Shoot.
It started around when I was coming on before. It started around 70,000. And by the time I went income around 35, 40. And when I left, it was my last full year, I covered everything in the car for my salary. So it was somewhere around, I think the total budget was like 115. And I brought in about 85, 90,000. But that was the first year the addition cracked full of it. And they gave us a big, larger capacity at Private Center United States. And I had two very hot athletes, Marqueta High, state sale. So then my be draw.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Any other questions for council? Open it up. What was that?
Not at the moment. But there's
Anyone else from the public wish to comment on this? Yes, go ahead, Becky.
Is it not on? I don't think it's on. Oh, was it on? Yeah.
Oh, I guess you get that.
One of my public record requests was just for the contracted services, but it was sort of also for what Kat had brought up with employees, how much they're made, when, what their position is. Which I could get that off all the warrants and distributions. But I did get something today from Danny, and I would like to give this to council. Give that to you if you can pass this around. You can get the big pile.
Well,
I can have the big pile
oh,
because that has my public record request for all the contracted services, just so she has that. And then I'm going to email it to everybody else. So you all have it too. And that's my list of just the contracted services, not the employees, but the contracted.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else from the public wish to comment? Seeing none, we'll move up to Zoom. Anyone on Zoom wish to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for, it's not an action item, so discussion item. Anybody have any final questions?
well, I'm wondering, Kat, can you say if you were able to glean the information you were looking for from all this?
some of it went by the hardest. And I think that, maybe if I just kind of drew out an example of a report or a form, it might make things more clear and easier. Because it sounds like some of what I was hoping was an extension of the salary schedule. And so we could add simple columns that indicate the FTE. We could highlight the step that that's at. And we can take the salary schedule, modify it so we have whatever that singular description is, their FTE, the step that it's at, the department is assigned to.
I'm happy to work with the council on any special requests like that for something that MIP doesn't spit out, but I definitely need more than 24 hours notice to get it into a packet to be able to accomplish that for you. And especially during right now, we have tax season, finance report season. We're got our hands full right now. These reports were the best I could do for you on the notice I received for what you wanted. I do apologize. They're not quite what you were looking for.
No, I'm not trying to throw any shade on you. Some of this have been requesting since January to get some of this format. So did get more information than expected, and it's nice because you get a report and then you can come through and learn something more about it. So it was nice to know, and I kind of had a sense like with the recreation, like, well, 4 people, then I know they have like different people that come in and do the, skate night and different activities. So that explains how they have that FTE. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item number 6, general information. Council has requested a review of the improvements to Crash Hall and the Clements Snack Bar, including project expenditure and project timelines. City Manager Mayor, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, so Emily is here. She is information direct extraordinaire. And she has put together a kind of a PowerPoint. Here, she's going to kind of walk through the information that was requested. We thought this might be an easier way to present this.
Let me see that like real quick. Thank you, Michelle. Do the laminate involved inside your shirt, clip on, done.
Download it.
So while we're waiting for the hospital, and introduce yourself, and maybe just talk a little bit about how long you've been here and what program you have.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Wood. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation here. I started here in 2019 at the skate program, putting skates on shelves, mopping the floor, and all that stuff. And through COVID, I've worked here and worked my way up to where I'm at now. And I've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of these projects come from beginning to end. So I thought this presentation would be the best way to share our progress over the years and where we started and where we're at now with our facility improvements and our green space improvements.
So, so the questions that we received from council, was I think kind of directed towards, our facility improvements. Where is the money coming from? What improvements they need over the years? And kind of what our outstanding items are that we're currently working towards, and what does kind of the future look like for recreation. If there's questions after we're not providing what council needs, we're happy to provide additional information. But so I'm going to turn this over to Emily to kind of.
Great, can we go next slide? So a general overview of where the funding comes from for a variety of these projects is right here. But we have 3 state parks per capita grants, and each one of these grants is dedicated to a different space in town. So the 3 areas are Crash Hall itself, inside and out. The second is Perigo Park, which includes the ball fields, the green space around it. And the third is the Gymkhana, which is the horse arena and the basketball and tennis courts. And in total, those 3 grants make up $177,000, and that is through state parks that we receive that money. The second pot of money is the American Rescue Plan that we received during COVID. And in total, that whole ARP fund was $297,830 to be very specific. And roughly, we've spent about $85,000 of that money in our projects here for the park. The other 2 grants are our USDA grants. We have one for community facilities, and in other words, that's our Crash Hall kitchen. And the other is our RPDG grant, and that's for the Clements Snack Bar and the serving booth area. Lastly is our maintenance and repair fund, which is an extension of our general fund. And that we budgeted this year $37,500, although we have not used all of that. But I included that for an overall total of $337,400 for all these improvements over the years.
From when to when?
About 2019 to now. We started these projects in 2019, just when I got here.
And those were all those grants in existence in 2019?
We had just secured the state parks one, so they were starting to get the paperwork going for the grant to begin. And the other USDA ones were right about 2020 that those came out, and the COVID relief dollars about 2020.
And the parks grants are just one time, is that correct?
Yes. So starting with our first major improvement, fall in our main gymnasium, I put our biggest items in light purple here on top. Our skate floor was about $35,000, and we had installed new electrical and wiring. It was roughly $14,000, and professional lighting, which included disco balls, lasers, fog machines, gobos, stage lighting, etc., for the total about $12,000 there. The first two items came primarily from our state parks per capita grant, that Crash Hall one. And that third, the lighting, came from the American Rescue Plan. The rest of these here primarily came from the state parks per capita as well. Some from the maintenance and repair fund if things broke around Crash Hall or needed to be repaired due to just deferred maintenance. That's where that comes from. And I listed some other things we did as well. The mural, the entire facility was painted on the inside. The drapery and curtains for the stage were added, and a barrier to prevent people from going on stage was added. We installed sound baffling panels to the ceiling. We had staff put those in. We installed an entrance into the mini rink where we cut the wall in half and made an ADA compliant transition there so people could access our restrooms better. And we added a reusable drinking fountain to our lobby. And lastly, security cameras were added to Crash Hall. Here's some before and after photos. Before, obviously, on the left, and here on the right, we have a photo with the lights on and a photo with the lights off, displaying our new lighting system there. Next is our party room. Our main ticket item was the carpet there with North Coast flooring. That was roughly $10,500, and that came from our per capita grant. And we also installed the new electrical, which was the other big ticket item, and that was through Schweigert. And I believe they just invoiced us all together as one project for Crash Hall. Other things we did is we painted all the walls in there, the roll-up floor. We installed slat wall, shelving, and backboards to hold some novelty items. We installed lighting covers to reduce the overhead glare, some transitions from the skate floor into the party room, security cameras, and we also acquired 4 novelty counters, but 3 of those were for free from other businesses giving them away.
So can you go back to that slide? So that was 130,000.
That was the overall amount of the grant. This
Right.
itself is 130,000.
Right. And I'm sorry. I think maybe we'll just have to go back to that one slide and see how much was left on there. Okay, thank you.
These are some before on the left pictures and after on the right. Before it was very blue in there, and we've lightened it up since, added some arcade games and other things. Next was our Crash Hall kitchen, and the major funding sources for this was our state parks per capita grant for Crash, again that $130,000 pot. The USDA Community Facilities Grant for the kitchen specifically was $22,000, and lastly, the American Rescue Plan that picked up any remaining expenses. Our major ticket items for the kitchen were installing all the paneling, the drywall, the gas lines, the plumbing, the electrical outlets and wiring, and buying all the equipment for the kitchen itself. Other things we did was we removed all of the old wooden shelving, drywall, plumbing, and counters that were in there. We added all stainless steel work surfaces. We added a few commercial concession equipment items, such as the hot dog roller, a cheese dispenser, and a popcorn machine. We installed slat wall shelving for packaged concessions and grab and go products for our users in the baskets for that. And 2 stainless steel industrial wire shelving racks. And lastly, more security cameras. And here's the before on the left and the after. Next is our Clements Snack Bar, and that is right here, that green building there. And the funding sources for renovating that were the RDBG grant through USDA, which was $15,000, and the remaining expenses through the American Rescue Plan. The major ticket item outside of the RDBG grant was the awning that went on, and that was about $5,000 through the ARP fund, and that was done by North Coast Awning. Other things we did was the metal screen door to the entrance. We added some weatherproof metal tables and seating, more security cameras, and inside added stainless steel surfaces, the sinks, the prep fridge, more shelving, and some commercial cooking equipment, such as a hot plate, a panini press, a rice cooker, microwave, and a warmer, which stays in the facility.
And when did you guys get that USDA grant?
That was about 2020. I would have to check to make sure specifically though for all of these. This was a before, actually, while they were putting it on, and the after of the awning there. I had some trouble finding photos inside of Clements itself, the snack bar. So I apologize, but I can dig deeper if anyone's interested in digging into that.
When you get a grant like that, is there usually a time frame within if you have to use it, or
Mm-hmm.
and is that still open ended, or that money is come and gone, or
This
how
one
long-
is closed out.
when did that close?
This one closed out, oh gosh, about 2 years ago.
And this one, you mean the state park per capita?
The USDA grant,
Okay.
that 15,000. Next is our serving booth.
Well, I had another question, if I may. So the work that we still have going on that needs to be done in Crash Hall Kitchen and then at the snack bar, is there a different grant that money is coming from?
That would come out of our likely our facilities fund 425. However, if we do have any remaining grant funds, I know one of them is still waiting to be closed out. So any money left over in that qualifies within the scope of work for the grant, we generally try to put those invoices to qualify.
Thank you.
Next is our serving booth facility. That is the brown building in the back. The major funding sources for the serving booth was that state parks per capita for Perigo. A little bit was used for the serving booth. The majority was through the USDA RDBG grant for the 15,000, and that's split between the green snack shack and the serving booth in the back. And the remaining funds is through the American Rescue Plan. That was picked up here. Outside, we installed an outdoor pergola. And over the barbecue pit, we restained and sealed the wraparound counter there and installed security cameras. And inside, we installed the sinks, paper towel dispensers, wire shelving, and an on-demand hot water heater. We added a warmer station, a sandwich prep fridge, an electric countertop oven, and stainless steel work surfaces, and added lockable window covers to all the sides, in addition to reframing the windows and painting the ceiling of the facility.
How much, like, how does someone use that facility, or what does that rent for, and what are the preparations that you have to make on that?
Primarily, it's used for people that have family reunions, graduations, large corporate events or business reunions. People are allowed to sell prepared food out of there generally, or if it's a temporary food event such as Annie and Mary Day, or on a not a regular basis.
And how much is the rent for that?
That varies depending on what they want to use, how much of the park they want to use.
I
But
guess-
generally, overall, about $250
A day or a weekend or
for a
event?
day.
Thank you.
Yes. This is before, while we were framing some of the windows here, and after, you can see the new pergola over there as well. Crash Hall on the outside in Perigo Park. The major funding sources for these improvements were our state parks per capita grants, both the crash for the roof and the Perigo Park Fund for the other green space improvements. But our major ticket item was the roof, installing new gutters to redirect the water, adding new bark to our playground, and adding new red rock to both of our fields. We also installed a fence over here next to some adjacent property owners, overhead lighting throughout the park, new signage, new irrigation systems at both fields, fencing and amenities to create the Blue Lake Dog Park over here on the right-hand side. And we painted and stained the dugouts at both fields. We restained and sealed the counter and the stage, reseeded and leveled both fields, installed new bleachers at both fields, and installed security cameras.
And these lists, given that some of these grants are from 5 years ago, all of these activities aren't just this year.
Yeah, they're spanning over the course of several years
Okay.
with our team. And here is some before and after. Here on the top, you can see our park had some pretty bad weeds in it and needed a major redo. So here's on the right after we got our playground bark filled. And on the left here was a fence that had been deferred for quite some time. And here on the right was the fence redone more recently, actually, at the bottom. Our Gymkhana improvements, the funding here came from our state's parks per capita, the horse arena grant and court grant, which was $25,000, our maintenance and repair fund that comes through the general fund, and our American Rescue Plan picked up the remaining of these expenses. Our major expense here was adding new sand to the arena and new irrigation systems to the arena. We also stained and sealed the arena sign, resurfaced the tennis courts, and filled in the cracks after the earthquake, added new tennis court nets, added reusable drinking fountain to the courts, also installed new basketball nets. And here on the left was our court before we resurfaced, and on the right was after. And I couldn't find a great photo of the arena to demonstrate the sand, but
Did you guys resurface it yourselves?
we did, yes, our staff, Public Works did.
Great.
And we had help painting the lines through an outside organization, pickleballers too.
What is that surface material?
I couldn't tell you. I think it's a special concrete, but I know it's very finicky when the earthquake happened. So we had to fill in the crack and all that. Here's some extra photos I wanted to include in the presentation before we had these funding available. This is over near the Little League field, the restrooms there before we painted that. This was during painting the serving booth here. I remember painting that back in 2020 or so. That was one of the first projects I did with the city. And this was our field before we had added the extra red rock with the major pits and water issues there. Here's some photos of during the renovations, painting the party room, adding the new carpet. This was the kitchen when we were clearing it out. This was our equipment when it got delivered on the pallet. And this was when we had painted some stuff in the rink, but we still had an old floor in there. Some more photos of staining the stage, adding their tennis court nets. This was adding the mini rink ADA transition there between the wall, and there's the yellow placards there. This was adding the new field irrigation at Clements Field and digging some electrical to the stage to have a plug in there.
Question on that.
Yes.
Do you guys have plans in the future for having any kind of a rain cover over the stage for when musicians and the instruments are out?
We do. However, we have received requests from the neighbors if we do renovate the stage to work with them to find some type of a backboard to help decrease the sound that reflects into their yard. So we would love to include that as part of the project.
Great.
And some extra photos after. This was our movie night here with our big inflatable screen, a photo of our nets and new floor, and lastly, more disco lighting from a skate night. Thank you, everyone.
I have a few more questions.
Absolutely.
Can you go back to that earlier slide where you showed the different funds and money? It's like slide 1, 2, or 3 is pretty far up there. So these grants that we're looking at here might go as far back as 2020, maybe
2019
now.
at
Okay.
2020.
And then what have we gotten in the last year?
As far as park
Any other?
grants,
Yeah.
we've been fundraising primarily for our bike park through Crash Hall. We haven't had a grant for park facilities on this side.
Okay.
However, we have received funding through that bike park and also our camp programs, more recreation based.
Okay.
Emily, would it be possible to do a copy of this slideshow?
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks.
I wonder, do you have any further breakdown for some of your pages? You had some price tags at the tops, but nothing on the bottoms.
Yeah, if there's any specific invoices or items that people were curious about, I'd be happy to work with them to pull those funds together. I wanted to name the biggest ticket items overall for each space to kind of give a general idea. But for the more tailored grants, such as the serving booth, the USDA ones, all that work was in the scope of the grant itself. So it was a little harder to pull out, I guess, a big ticket item.
When you're looking at a grant of, well, combined grants here, it's not like they came in around the same time, $177,000. What is your process for determining where that money goes, what the priorities are?
Yeah, Mandy had actually helped apply with our prior park director. From the records I've seen, is each space you apply for how much money you want overall. So Crash Hall needed the most work, and we had applied for the 130 for Crash Hall and had a budget for how that would be used. And the same with the other spaces, the 22,000 for Perigo Park and 25 for the horse arena.
I think my question wasn't clear. I mean, for instance, with Crash Hall itself, how do you determine, do we do the roof? Do we do the lights? Do we do the paint? Or do we do the floor? How do you determine what that priority is within the money that you have?
Certain things like the roof definitely were deferred and needed to be done as soon as they could. Other things were kind of if money was left over, then we can see what other projects that we could do after the big things were done.
I think you always have to look at, these grant resources are pretty far and few between. You don't get a lot of money for maintenance of facilities. And so looking at the highest and best use of these funds that the city would not be able to find revenue or resources from another source. So the roof was definitely the highest priority that we had because the roof was actually leaking, and it had been on a plan for a number of years to raise money and set money aside for that item. Secondarily, the electrical wiring was probably the second highest need, if not the first, if we had known just how bad it was. But really the wiring, this was basically a barn built by volunteers a long time ago. And the wiring, just over the years, it had been spliced in. It wasn't up to code. And once we got into the walls to kind of see, because we were experiencing outages and fluctuations in power. Once we finally got a commercial electrician in, it was like, this has to be priority. We're going to burn it down or someone's. So, the big ticket items that you just never really have the money to do for everything else, you can build in your budget to, maybe paint a wall and things. But, Parks and Recreation never really has a lot of extra money. So it was nice to be able to tick off some of these bigger long-term, a roof is a 35, 40-year investment for us. So
Thank you for that. Totally on the electrical, that's one of those things that you plug it in, your item works, and you think everything is fine, and it's just a second away from burning the place down. So that to me is always money well spent. With this American Rescue Plan, am I understanding correct? There are $297,830. $85,000 has been spent, so that leaves us about $212,000.
Yes, roughly.
Is that something that we might do community outreach with and see what they have?
Sure. Extended and closed out. That was through COVID.
So we don't have 212. Okay, so
That was what the grant amount was.
Mhm.
So we did a lot of different projects with that fund outside of just the park stuff. So we gave out grants to businesses,
Mhm.
we paid for staff, we paid for other improvements throughout the city.
I'm
So what-
looking here behind you, the American Rescue Plan, total funding, 297,000 amounts spent on parking facilities. Okay, but other money went elsewhere.
Yes.
Got you, thank you. Then one other question, and I think I'll have my questions done. So the pergola is like $250 a day. And then how much if you wanted to rent the stage?
The stage, it depends what they want to use it for. How our facilities rentals work is the amount of people.
Okay,
It starts with under 100 generally, 100,
under 100.
yeah, under 100. So that would be that basic package price of 225. And that includes that stage and the picnic tables there. If they
Okay.
want to extend the rental to Clements Field, and often they do to do a kickball game or something, then we start with the field rental as well to add on to that.
The serve food gets rented separately as well.
Mhm.
So we got the pergola, which is the serving booth, same thing.
No, the pergola, that's just the covering for the barbecue pit.
Oh, okay. That when you said 250 a day, is that just the pergola? The serving.
The serving booth itself, the facility, and
Ah,
often
okay.
people will barbecue or the pergola.
And then how much on the Clemens concession stand? How much is that a day?
That one, I'd have to look for the daily rental rate. I don't have that. Yeah.
Stand or, because we have a tenant,
Okay, how much is that lease?
350 to 400 a month.
It varies. There's a summer and a winter rate because business varies when it rains.
Okay. And
Fee schedule that gets adopted by council, it gets recommended by Parks and Recreation Commission that has the rental rates for all of our facilities and programs.
okay. And what is the process, just like briefly, for somebody to say, I want to rent the stage and picnic tables? Process look like us? They want it for 2 days a week.
Yeah, so they can either call City Hall, often they email us, or stop by in person, and we fill out a facility rental agreement if the date is available. If they're renting the serving booth, that requires insurance, which can be obtained through your personal policy or through City Hall on a per day basis. We put you in our calendars, and from there, we also reach out with an email that has a code to get into the serving booth if that's the rental that they do. If they need restroom access, then they often will rent Crash Hall, and there's a separate fee for that. And that is because staff has to be there to ensure that there's no crossover between if a skate party is happening as well.
Okay. And then the crash hole kitchen. Is that for rental or use or?
Not at this time,
Okay.
but we're building in a program to be able to rent that out. Or like a caterer's kitchen or a prep kitchen. And so we're working through the permit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council before we open it to the public?
I just, Emily, thank you so much for coming out because I was curious your hand at this. If you were nervous at all, I think that was.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Does the public have any questions? Yes, go ahead, Alex. Alex, would you mind coming up to the mic? I'm sorry. Yeah.
I can bring it.
Do you want me to bring it to you?
That's the mic.
Alex Richard, Park from Main Street to 4 to 1997. I'm stealing the sound.
Yes.
Great, great. I had plans to do that when I was there. Are you thinking of doing the upper walls at any time?
We do have extra panels left. We've had ideas to put them in between our party room wall and the neighbors that are adjacent on the backside of the rink to help block some of the bass that comes from our speakers. And that would be our first priority if we can figure out how to work that in. If not, on the ceiling.
Really used to garble the music at skates, and I'm really glad to hear that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, I want to compliment the people who do in the two field. They're draining much better than any time in my 45 years in Blue Lake. And that's really nice to see. To be able, I was down here the day after a heavy storm. The field, except for one puddle out by the shortstop position, was clear. That's never happened before.
I appreciate
So good job. And one other thing, in all the construction you've done in Pratt Hall, did anybody comment upon the structure of the hall?
The structure itself,
Yes.
we did have, when we were getting our gutters looked at, they had said it was imperative to get those on ASAP, because the water, when it bounces, was starting to rot the foundation up from the bottom, just from the moisture. And so that was a huge priority for me to get our gutters scheduled and put in.
When the extension was put on, okay, it was just a box back up until 89, 90 it started. And Danco did it over the summer of like 90, I think it was 91. And the architect who designed that extension came in with his computer programs and all that, because they have to, just keeping the building up. Well, they tore that wall out, the west wall. And his computer could not find how those volunteers, it's built by volunteers, who went out, built that over the summer so the kids would have a place to play in during the winter. I forget Mr. Prash's last name, but Prash is named after the guy who organized and built this club. He was a millwright out in Corbell. Then, so by 1964 it was done, and they started a skating program shortly after that. And the former postmaster in town, Ron Brunson, the one who volunteered to get that skate program running. And it's been running since 1972, 73. So the town's really deep into this town's fabric, into our little town's fabric. But that architect was puzzled because the structure holding the roof up, and you see they have metal, I forget the name of it, where that screw into various ties up there to bind it. And he went to the state with it. And what came back was, well, listen, this thing has stood up through all the earthquakes that have happened in Humboldt since 1964. I was in there the day we had three. You were there too.
3 minutes.
Yeah. And so this is a public comment. So I'm interrupting my train of thought. Only the game.
Careful, that's a camel.
So and nobody could find out how that was done up there. Not what keeping that building up. So that the day that we had three, one of them happened like in the middle of a skate, and the kids were skating around and all of that, and the parents rushed down to City Hall because there was a 7.0, 7.1 earthquake came running down to Crash Hall. And all the kids are skating around the hall and everything. The only thing that happened was the lights, the old lights. They were swinging back and forth, back and forth.
Thank you, Alex.
I've never seen you do that before, John. Okay.
I think he's gonna redo this.
Well, and there's this is involved. That's a great story. Cool.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
All right, any other public? Yes, go ahead, Becky.
Thank you, Emily, for that lovely presentation. I've been following the Parks and Rec grant now. So, and this is all of it here, including all those lovely seats we talk about. And so I just wanted to thank you for that presentation on it. But I'm still missing, of course, some of these, and I was explained today by Danny that I have, let's see here now, hold on, $60,639.82 still in receipts that are not, I don't have here, that were from the Parks per capita grant, and that's out of the 177. And I also have, and that is for Project 56, which is for Crash Hall. Project 57, which is for the Gymkhana. There is another 15,491.48 that I still, of course, am waiting for those. And I was explained that I would not receive those until later on, once the funds were received. But of course, the time for that was between 7/1/23 and 12/30/23 that all those went out. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. I'm still tracking those. And since I'm here, I will be doing also one for the American Rescue Plan and to find out more about that and all the other funds you have, including the USDA through the commercial kitchen, which I have asked for already. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from, yes, go ahead. I can't hear you, sorry. Come up here, please. Should get a little remote mic for everybody.
Oh, Mary Ann Spanier, thank you. I love recreation. Anyway, it's very important for the community. Appreciate it. A couple questions. So the bathrooms over here, I know the skate bathrooms are only open when skates open. And then these other, you said there's some bathrooms on the ball field. And then there's a bathroom over here that's occasionally open. And I was wondering about these bathrooms over here for the kids, if they're available during playtime, not sanctioned playtime, but just kids in general. Is there a bathroom facility that they can use on the facility here when they're here?
Yes, we do have our public restroom here in the front.
That front one that's always
Located in the
open.
front.
But the ball field ones are not open. They're right next to the playground.
Traditionally, the ones over at Orchfield are locked
Okay.
because we've experienced quite a deal of graffiti over there and
then
other
maybe
vandalism.
somebody might move in there during the day or something.
Yes.
So they might fall up from the river. Okay, and then the other thing, so this is a commercial kitchen. You've got two commercial kitchens. The kitchen at the hall is Mandy. Are you in the permit process to get that to be a commercial kitchen?
Yes. Kitchen as we have basic resources. So we're in the permitting process to see at what level we can get it permitted at. It's currently operates as our concession facility. So for skate and parties and
Right.
stuff. We're pretty close to getting it permitted. We're not sure what level we'll be able to get that, but it should be permitted at a fairly high level. It's got everything. It's got every
Precincts.
well, it's got more precincts.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, all commercial appliances. The only thing that we're waiting on is our range and our hood.
Right.
Because we aren't able, the way the facility is built, we weren't able to put an Ansel system in, so that really limited what that could be done with that range.
Oh, okay. And I was just wondering, so Azalea Hall has a commercial kitchen. It's pretty limited, but they rent it for $20 a couple hours during the day when it's not, obviously in a situation where there's, an event going on. And I was wondering if that's something that you were going to do, that you would be, maybe somebody wanted to have classes or do kitchen work or catering, or I would rent that over there to do some catering stuff occasionally.
Yeah,
Like,
One of our main focuses, and just so council knows, what we've been doing with Parks and Recreation is really looking to try and drive different profit sectors. Knowing that recreation doesn't ever really generate enough resources to support itself on its own. But our facilities, as we've been investing in them, we've been investing in opportunities for them also to generate revenue on different levels. So everything that we've done with the craft kitchen, we have a whole plan to be able to make that a rentable kitchen that will drive revenue. It also will provide opportunities for small businesses in our community if there's caterers or small food producers or a food truck, being able to use that kitchen as a home base because commercial kitchens are a huge need. We are a little limited with that kitchen just because we are able to put an Ansel system into the kitchen because of the way it's constructed and the cost. It was over $90,000 just for the Ansel. So it was well beyond our budget. But looking, we've really increased our skate parties. We are booked out constantly for rentals. Our skating program, we've increased our skating program now. We've been doing dances, a whole host of things. We now contract with softball leagues for the girls softball, different wood bat leagues, just really maximizing the use of our facilities. We work really closely with the Saddle Club so that we have one of the nicest arenas in Humboldt County, if not the nicest. We just put in all that new sand footing that really allows it to be used for a whole host of different events. Looking at the bike park and the connectivity to business development and recreation economy. So we've really been looking at ways to increase the use of those spaces because we have to pay for them anyways. And if you're not bringing revenue in, it starts to become a point where in the past our facilities are really starting to run down. And these are expensive facilities to maintain and fix, and these are they're big facilities. So really focusing on the best approach to one, provide all those things that we all love about Blue Lake. I mean, I grew up skating in that skating rink and playing fall my whole life and riding the arena. And so there are things that are really dear to our community, but we also have to figure out ways to pay for them. So we try and capitalize as much as we can.
Thank you.
I want to have a question about the lighting of the sound before we.
Okay, Julie, Christy, you go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I hope you guys are able to hear me a little better tonight. I really want to thank John Mayer for being very patient with letting everybody kind of go back and forth this evening during public comment. I appreciate it because this is a really big, topic for our town as far as Parks and Rec, the programs, the funding, the departments, and we really haven't had this thorough of a discussion on it in my preview time. And so thank you, Emily. That was really nice. And for clarifying a lot of things. I spent all my youth keeping that arena going, volunteering hours and hours and hours till we developed the Blake Saddle Club finally. Was on their vice president for many, many years. Prior to that, I'd volunteer just bringing my horses down in for Annie Mary days and donating money back to Parks and Rec. So really love to see those facilities still up and running. Could they generate more money and be in better condition? I have to say yes, yes. After I left Blake Saddle Club, we were making good money there and having events, and I went up to help McKinleyville Arena, and I really have not seen Blue Lake pick back up with continuing having rentals and events. I would love to still stay really affordable for everybody. We always have these nonprofits coming in, like Lauren West doing the ground. She doesn't charge anything, like any thank you the city can ever give the West family. And it's amazing. So I just feel like we really do need to have like what Becky's doing. Like this shouldn't be Becky's job. And we have you guys now asking all these important questions, clarifying everything. So thank you. It really is something if you want to ad hoc or something on, like, I think the public's always been participating and would like to be an asset to you guys as well. I will go back to the permitting for, I thank you for my time. I know I'm going long. I want to go back to the permitting issue though, because online it was promoted not only online and during meetings that this was all caused by, I'm going to quote it as it was said multiple times, as haters. And that is total false. And that is not true. The health department already, you guys knew it needed to be done and we're still operating. Nobody turned you in. Like the dog got complained on, but I thought it was really inappropriate that nobody clarified. No, you guys, we actually knew we needed to do this stuff and now we're actually having to do it. So if we could get a statement like that, because it's just always dividing the community when stuff like that is promoted. When we have officials sitting in meetings that can actually clarify, because they're the ones that knew we needed to do those renovations. So just to keep the peace, I think when it comes to stuff like that, it really should be just brought out, be blunt, and move on. Okay, so everything else, keep digging, you guys. We do need to get some closure on a lot of stuff. This isn't the only public records issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Can you just make sure no one else is on Zoom? I can't see the roster, so make sure no other hands are up. All right, last call from Zoom for public comment. Last call from the public. All right, let's bring it back to council.
One of your slides had some price tag on it. I think it was lighting. Yeah, I remember. It's been so off the whole per year. I was looking at it. But and I remember about $32,000 in lighting and sound equipment. So I'm wondering, your number that you have here was less than 20,000. So I'm wondering how I happened to the rest of that, right? How does it get, you know, get out of your report?
Absolutely. So the number we had up there was for the main wholesaler that we bought the majority of our lighting and special effects from, which was Star Wholesale. And the remaining balance of that other smaller equipment was purchased from other distributors.
Right, and that 32,000 I found was all for about the same time, but I think most of it was from Star.
The invoice I pulled directly from Star Wholesale was the amount presentation.
Any other questions from council? All right, seeing none, moving on to item 7.
Thank you, everyone. Let's email that your your call presentation on it.
Around for the house.
Thank you.
All right, one moment, sorry. All right, item number 7. Councilmember Scafani has requested a discussion item regarding the formation of a transparency ad hoc commission. Below is the information regarding the requested item, along with a proposed process for discussion and direction as presented by the agenda setting committee. City Manager Mager, would you like to comment on anything? Great. Would you like to lead since it was your request?
I didn't write this exactly. Somebody put some thought into it. My thought was acknowledging that, I think we have acknowledged over the last few months that there are some desires on the part of the community and the council and others, that we would increase transparency and access to information. And so I feel like it's pretty obvious that the council sees things the way they see things. Staff sees things a certain way. The community members see things a certain way, and we don't all see them the same, right? So my idea would be to establish some sort of a process where we can work together on kind of a little task force kind of a thing to identify issues and try to solve them. And work in a cooperative fashion with community members to improve trust and transparency and whatever communication issues are identified. That would lead to a better overall relationship between City Hall and the community.
Any other comments from council? I guess my concern is that we are kind of an oversight committee, so potentially having another oversight is a concern, I guess. I would wonder what role they would play. I would also, I would be comfortable in them reviewing our environment and making sure that we have information available, but I'd like to have a dedicated scope to what it is they would be doing. So potentially we could form an ad hoc to prepare ideas to bring them forward to the council at a later time, a more formulated idea for this committee or ad hoc, because I'm just concerned about adding another layer of review on top of the city as it is.
Okay. Well, I don't see this well. And again, I probably have a very different view than some other folks too, because I've been working on the website trying to improve transparency in that through that. And there are some challenges there. And so I've kind of dug deep in there, and there's even parts and corners of the website I haven't had time or opportunity to fix yet. But I hear from a lot of people, oh, website's not doing what it's supposed to do. Oh, it's not there. And I go in and I find it, or I have to log into the website and have to clear a cache. And then, oh, now it's popping up. But maybe it's popping up on my computer, but it's not popping up on somebody else's computer. So there's some difficulties and frustrations. And because I know the website as well as I do, when people tell me things aren't right, sometimes they can help them figure out how to see what's there. But it's frustrating for me. And I know, but anyway, really part of my deal is not having too many layers, but to get more input and to have a formal avenue for people to direct their solutions, right? It's not having a solution-based group that can work towards something. And I understand what you're saying, but I also feel like, we sit here a couple times a month and we say, hey, we'd like to have something different here or there. but we're not able to make those changes happen.
Would you envision this being like a commission, or would this just be like a one-off review of our website to make sure that items are available?
It's the website. It's other stuff as well. I mean, I think the website essentially is a tool that can be used to the greatest extent to solve some of our communication issues. And I'd like to be able to get it used in its most effective and efficient way possible. But yeah, I guess it would be kind of a limited time, limited scope situation.
Well, a question for you. Trying to think of examples of this, like for transparency that could work with what we have and might satisfy some of the questions of the public and the council. As a for instance, you know, how many times even before I was on council, I've heard nobody told me. You know, something big is about to happen. Nobody told me. But maybe this is something that had, you know, was rooted from 4 years ago or 2 years ago, and now it's finally gone through its process and it's bubbling up to the surface. So an idea that I have that perhaps could be on the website would be just a project tracking, you know, a list of considered projects or where a project is in its progress. It doesn't have to have extreme detail, but if we want to know what's going on, and it could be by department, you know, what's going on with Parks and Rec, what's going on with admin, what's going on with Public Works, that the citizens can take a quick look and get a sense of, hey, we're leveling out the ball field and it's using the APR grants or whatever it was. Is that one of the, I kind of like what you're
Right,
imagining?
right. Some of that, you know, is reports and ongoing information that would help in lots of different directions. But again, it's like we can't put absolutely everything on the website in any particular time frame. There's a tremendous amount of information, and getting stuff on the website is very time consuming. So if it's deemed that a certain something is really really important and priority, then we would have to talk about budget to get it done. So that's part of it. And again, it's just more eyes and brains working on the project and deciding, you know, what things could look like and how we'd like them to progress. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out at all. I'm just proposing that we invite the public to work with us on something like this.
That sounds more like a task force than an ad hoc.
That's what I've been calling it, the task force. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that if we're going to involve the council in it, we can only have 2 of us, right?
Yes.
So it would be an ad hoc. It would be ad hoc members of the council that work with a group of citizens. Potentially.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I guess I am struggling to again hone down what are some specific goals and objectives for this task force, unless they're going to be just like on the ready, like we're going to call the group now because of this issue. Just another comment, transparency is a big word and its meaning is varied among different people who hear it and use it. However, that being said, with the website, I completely agree that we could make some changes that might improve some of that information sharing. And one of the things that I was hoping for that maybe the city clerk could help with would be a monthly newsletter that would be published on the webpage, on the website, and looking at all of the different projects, activities. It could be multifaceted in its purpose. It could be used to advertise for specific projects, volunteers needed. Now we're working on this. This event is coming, potluck, and whatever events are happening. And I would like to see, and there would possibly need to be some management of that, obviously, and a building of that monthly newsletter, whatever you want to call it. But there are other cities that are actually doing that, that are quite lovely. And then hopefully most of the information that can be shared with the public would be on there, and relevant information that would have a purpose. And so I guess I would just be concerned about, I mean, I don't mind discussing the idea, but I would be reluctant to develop a formal process, I guess, at this point, unless we have some clear objectives for the task force.
Well,
Yeah, no, this is good because we're just having the initial conversation around
Mhm.
what this would be, and then we could form an ad hoc potentially that would then formalize exactly what it was, and then come back. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, my objective is to involve community and to move forward in building trust. And this is, I feel like the absence of trust happens in the absence of information. And so I feel like that's the way to approach it. And it's a pretty broad stroke. I get that, so and then I'm not in a place to narrow it down or to restrict it at this point.
Any other comments from council? All right, let's open up to the public. Anyone want to comment on the transparency committee? Just go ahead, Alex. You want me to bring it to you? I'll bring it to you. I'll get it.
No. I'm up. You're getting looser now. You're moving me so much. The state of California has a sunshine rule, the Brown Act. It forces transparency on any jurisdiction within the state of California. It forces it legally. And it's pretty complete. It's one of the best in the 50 states. I've used the Brown Act. It is complete. And it does have consequences for a jurisdiction in California that doesn't comply. So I would say, if you want transparency, adhere to the Brown Act completely. And that's it. That's it. I mean, and I think the council trying to go beyond, around, through the Brown Act would only confuse the issue. I say adhere to it. Make it a policy of the city of Blue Lake that you're going to adhere to the Brown Act religiously, and you'll have transparency. Now, that also puts a burden on the person wanting information that he or she accurately identifies the information one wants. And when that doesn't occur, then the lack of transparency is on the indefiniteness of the person requesting the information. So both parties are responsible in that, and it works. It works. And I don't think you need any more. I really don't. I think just adhere to the Brown Act.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to support Michelle's idea about the newsletter. Information availability has been a problem for many, many years in the city because we don't have a newspaper. People in Eureka know what's going on pretty much with their city because they have a newspaper. They have Lost Coast Outpost. They have a number of news organizations that cover their activities, but small towns, including Blue Lake, don't have that. And I think that's where a lot of people's confusion comes from and feeling like they're not being informed. It seems like that would be, I know it's difficult and hard on staff to do something like that, but I think the results would be really good in terms of feeling of transparency, communication, feeling that people are being given the opportunity to find out what's going on in town. So I support you on that.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Moving up to Zoom, Julie, go ahead.
Hey guys, sorry I'm getting my sheep in and I'm just had like a lot of thoughts on this. It's been 5 years that we've needed some kind of facilitation for a mechanism like this. And I really think we could branch it out and maybe like a way of like a public resource commission. That commission could be in charge of keeping up to date on items that the public would like to have town halls on with other subjects and items. The public records requesting, maybe a way to start like helping with archiving. I don't know if a commission or a task force is really a way to go, But I really think like having something idealized as like a public resource commission would kind of keep us out of some issues. Like, I mean, no offense on arts and heritage, but I would much rather in the last 5 years had something more like a public resource commission. You guys could have shifting liaisons as a council member on that commission, perhaps, or something. I mean, it's obviously an item that we need to continue discussion on. I don't want to see you guys not at least table this discussion with maybe some more thought on it, perhaps creating an ad hoc now that could idealize maybe some goal setting and then bring it back. I'd love to see something like that. But please just don't let this go. I think we can figure out something in the meantime. In the meantime, we still need a facilitator like this. We do not have a clerk and we do not have nothing else to facilitate. And we need something in the meantime to help catch the public up. We could do timeline stuff like Emily did, you know. I just feel like it's a great catch up mechanism in any way that we can do it. Let's just try and brainstorm. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Becky, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, all right. So I agree with Elise, and I liked some of the things Michelle had to say about putting something on the red website about projects. But transparency has been the whole thing for many years. A lot of people, so we just want to be kept informed and up to date. That's why I do a lot of my public record requests and look at these things and then I share them with the public. I'm not trying to give anybody a bad time. I'm just going ahead and doing this, putting stuff together, and I share it. That way, that transparency is there. And if somebody has a question, then at least they have that information. So I say this is one of our biggest things that we've had problems with, and we just need to form something to help us out and to make sure that transparency is there. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Last call on Zoom. Seeing none, moving back to the public. Any last comments? All right, let's move.
There's some good people that might be good to be on this ad hoc committee out there.
Thank you. Do you want to comment? Any other comments from council? All right. Do you mind if does anyone want to form an ad hoc committee to come back to council with ideas, or do you want to have further discussion?
The ad hoc is usually 2 council members, and if 2 want to, that's totally fine. But a task force can be a council member and the public if that's what you're trying to do. So that's another route to go. I'm just trying to think of a way to simplify and expedite.
Well, I think if we're gonna do something, we should have 2 council members. It would be ad hoc that work for the community.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what the difference between a task force would be, or is there any official creation method for a task force versus ad hoc?
I think very similar in scope that you have to have a defined scope.
Okay.
You know, I think a task force usually is formed. What I've seen with task forces that they're formed and then they come together at certain times for certain reasons. For example, like Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District has a water task force, and those are designated people, and they come together for specific reasons throughout the year. Whereas an ad hoc is a short term, specific task-driven type of assemblage.
I'm more comfortable forming an ad hoc of 2 council members rather than a task force, if that would be acceptable to the council.
Sure.
But
Start there.
sure. Is there any volunteers to be on an ad hoc to look into transparency, scope, and what it would entail, and then come back at a later time and present?
Volunteer.
I'm feeling a little full at the moment. Don't like the idea.
Same.
Um,
I want to keep discussing it. I'm just not ready to do
Yeah.
it right now.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I just have some projects on houses here. I really kind of tough.
all right, and just to confirm, City Manager Maker, I can just form an ad hoc, or you have to have about Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and form a transparency review ad hoc committee with Elise Scrofani to investigate the scope and purview of a um, potential transparency committee of some sort, but we'll get more details and can get back to you on what our findings are. We'll reach out to community members and determine what scope would be presented to the council.
So, see me?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Moving on to the next item, apologies. All right. We'll comment on the closed session.
I think we should have future, actually,
Okay.
correspondence in future.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead and let's have correspondence on future agenda item.
Is there any correspondence? Okay.
All right. Do you guys have anything to report out?
No, no, I don't know that we're, no, yeah, we're not doing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies. So no correspondence.
Future agenda.
All right. Any future agenda items you want to bring forward?
Let's go focusing on the budget. But we've already got that on there. Like to address having council regards related to any ongoing negotiation committees there. Yes. I think there needs to be 1 to 2 council members involved in all discussions and negotiations that are ongoing, and we should be identifying each and every one of those projects or negotiation issues and what's the rate on those.
Great. Any other future agenda items?
I don't have any new ones, just the ones that I've spoken of before.
We've got quite a few, yeah. Does the public wish to add any future agenda items or potentially bring items forward? Seeing none, anyone on Zoom have any future agenda items? Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of want to thank you for your guys' last motion to like continue that, but I will kind of throw out maybe gearing towards more like a public relation commission, not so much transparency, and maybe get away from that. Maybe that's a discussion we could have, like what would that kind of commission look like maybe, and that could go vice versa, new agenda and kind of last agenda. So thank you for just letting me spit that back out. I think we have room to evolve in that atmosphere. So thank you.
Julie.
I'm doing my best to answer poetically. Poetically,
All right. Well, if there's no more future agenda items, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is public comment and closed session item. Is there no public comment on the closed session items?
I'll tie the two together, whether you really convene it, and you publicize your reports coming out of closed session. I've been to every meeting so far this year you guys have had closed session. And I never get the reports of what's coming out. Never. So let's start there.
Great. Thank you, Alex.
You what? You got it? What are you, my 3 minutes?
You can keep going. You have some more time.
in general, our report out is that we don't have something to report out. So that's why there's not a report.
You don't even get to hear that.
How would you like to hear that?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that's the problem we're dealing with.
We need either to mic you up or go ahead and do you want to? Okay. Julie, go ahead.
I apologize, you guys. I was just under the impression my last comment was under a new agenda item, and now we have moved to closed session. Could you just catch me up? I'm so sorry.
We are entering into closed session discussion for performance
Okay.
evaluation.
Okay, was I wrong chiming in a minute ago on new agenda? Did we move that forward in the agenda or no?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Could I make some comment on closed session real quick then? Is that fine?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. I just want to say back to what I've said before, this is really more of a professional review. And I think when we look back at kind of some stuff that I think is probably the biggest thing that really I have as an issue has been, you know, public records. A lot of it has been retained purposefully, strategically, and I feel like that should be concerning. And it's not like once or twice, it's been 5 years. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. That's enough to be concerned about, and that's performance. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Julie. Last call for comments. All right. Can we get a motion to move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Yeah.
Thanks.